The radio operator was still sitting at his station when they found him. His eyes were open. His face was turned up toward the ceiling. Around him, every other member of the crew was dead. On the deck, in the corridors, in the engine room below. The captain was on the bridge. The ship's dog was somewhere near the stern. None of them showed a mark. No wounds, no blood, no sign that anyone had fought anything, or run from anything, or had time to understand what was happening to them. What killed every person aboard the SS Ourang Medan has never been established, and whether the ship was real at all is the only question that matters now. February 1948. The Strait of Malacca in 1948 was one of the most trafficked waterways on Earth. Post-war commercial shipping was rebuilding fast, and the strait was the funnel between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Every vessel moving between Europe and East Asia passed through it. The Ourang Medan was one of hundreds making the run. In February 1948, 2 American ships picked up a distress call on a shared frequency. One was the Silver Star. The second vessel's name does not appear in any surviving account of the incident. The message came in Morse code, in pieces across several transmissions. Then one final fragment. 2 words, no punctuation. Then nothing. The frequency went silent. The Silver Star took a bearing on the transmission and changed course. They found the Ourang Medan within hours, adrift, no smoke, running at a slight list, no visible damage. They hailed her by radio. No answer. They hailed her by signal lamp. Nothing. A boarding party crossed in a lifeboat. The boarding party climbed the hull ladder and came over the rail. The first bodies were on the deck, then more in the corridors below. The captain was on the bridge, where the captain of a ship in trouble would be expected to be. None of the dead had visible injuries. What the boarding party reported, and what was later repeated in accounts published in the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council, was the expression on the faces. Every face was turned toward the sky. Every set of eyes was open. And every face, the captain's, the radio operators, the men in the engine room, wore what the accounts described as an expression of terror. The ship's dog was found near the stern. It was dead. Its lips were pulled back from its teeth. The temperature aboard was not noted in surviving accounts, but the equatorial air in the Strait of Malacca in February runs above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The bodies had been in that heat for at least several hours. No one in the boarding party stayed long. They went back to the Silver Star to call it in. Before any salvage could be organized, before any authority could board and examine the Ourang Medan properly, smoke began rising from the lower decks. The fire reached the boilers fast. The men from the Silver Star barely got clear before the Ourang Medan exploded. Witnesses described the hull lifting partially out of the water before it broke apart. Then it sank. The captain's log, the cargo manifest, the engine room register, the bodies of every crew member. All of it went down with the hull. The Ourang Medan left behind a boarding party's testimony, a distress signal logged by 2 receiving vessels, and a name. And the name is where the trouble starts. In Malay, Ourang Medan means man from Medan, Medan being a port city on the northeast coast of Sumatra. Several maritime historians have noted the name in their critiques of the account's provenance. A vessel named for the nearest port city, carrying no registration anywhere, witnessed only in a disaster. The name is the first thing researchers flag. No autopsies were ever performed. The bodies sank with the ship. What survived were the accounts of the boarding party, and later, several published analyses of what those accounts described. The primary source most often cited is a 1952 article in the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council, which compiled the witness reports and offered a framework for what might have occurred. The first explanation is carbon monoxide. A malfunctioning boiler or cracked exhaust manifold could have flooded enclosed spaces with colourless, odourless gas. Carbon monoxide poisoning at high concentrations causes rapid incapacitation and death with no external marks. The faces turned skyward posture and open eyes are consistent with sudden incapacitation. A gas buildup igniting would also explain the explosion. But the dog was on the open stern deck. Carbon monoxide concentrates in enclosed spaces. An animal on an exposed deck in equatorial wind would not succumb at the same rate as the crew sealed below, and the boarding party found it dead with the same frozen expression. The second explanation involves the cargo. In the immediate post-war period, the Strait of Malacca carried material that did not appear in official manifests. Japanese Imperial Army forces maintained documented chemical weapons depots in occupied Sumatra and throughout the Malay Peninsula during the war. Stockpiles that Allied and colonial authorities were still attempting to account for as late as 1948. The theory holds that the Ourang Medan was transporting nerve agents or volatile compounds, possibly potassium cyanide or nitroglycerin, and that a rupture in the hold killed the crew before anyone could react. Under this reading, the absence from port registries is not a mystery, but the condition of the voyage. A vessel running outside official channels precisely because its cargo could not be declared. The explosion is consistent with volatile chemicals destabilized by equatorial heat. The specific problem is the symptom profile. Potassium cyanide poisoning at lethal concentrations causes convulsions before death, a fact that would be inconsistent with the boarding party's account of bodies lying undisturbed at their stations, the radio operator's hands still near the keys. No chemical residue was documented because no investigation reached the wreck before it sank. The third explanation is that the story never happened as reported. This is where the archival record becomes the story. The earliest known written account of the Ourang Medan appeared not in a wire service report filed from a port in 1948, but in a series of articles published in a Dutch-language newspaper that same year. Maritime historian Rick Logers traced the chain of documentation backward through the archive and found that every subsequent account, including the 1952 Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council article, draws from that same newspaper series. No independent primary source earlier than those newspaper articles has surfaced in any archive Logers examined. Investigators who searched Dutch colonial shipping records, the Ourang Medan was believed to be a Dutch-registered vessel, found nothing. No registration, no manifest, no port of call. In the Lloyd's of London shipping registers for that period, the Ourang Medan does not appear. Not in the registry for 1947, not for 1948, not in any adjacent volume. A ship that multiple witnesses watched burn and sink had apparently never, on paper, existed. Registries in the immediate post-war Dutch colonial administration were inconsistently maintained. Ships operating in grey market commerce, and there was a substantial volume of it in 1947 and 1948, sometimes existed in fact without existing in any office's paperwork. That is a plausible explanation for the registry gap. It does not explain why the newspaper series, not a port report or an official inquiry, is where the paper trail begins. The hoax theory has a structural problem of its own. Two vessels on independent watches reported receiving the same distress call on the same frequency, with the same content at the same time. No transmission log from either receiving vessel has surfaced in a public archive to confirm or deny the signal's exact wording. But fabricating consistent testimony across two separate ship crews, neither of which had reason to coordinate a fiction, is a different order of problem than a newspaper elaborating a rumour. The wreck has never been located. The Strait of Malacca, in the area where the Ourang Medan was last reported, runs between approximately 80 and 200 feet in depth, depending on the precise position, well within the range of modern survey equipment. No systematic search for the hull has been recorded in any public archive. The radio operator who sent the last transmission was sitting at his station when the boarding party arrived. His eyes were open. Whatever he had seen in the moment before the transmission cut out, he had not moved from the keys to get away from it. Went silent. The ship burned. And whatever the Ourang Medan was carrying in its hold or in the imagination of the people who first told this story, it went down with the hull and has not come back up. The file is open. The frequency is dead. Thank you for watching. If a story like this is why you're here, hit subscribe. We open a new file every few days. Every file in the vault has a story. We'll see you at the next one.